today we've got Aissa Gallie very kindly from the York and North Yorkshire LEP. Aissa, would you like to say who you are and what you do, please?
Sure. So I'm Aissa, and I work for the York and North Yorkshire Local Enterprise Partnership, and it's quite an unusual organisation. There's 38 of them in the country, and our role is to act as a bridge between central government and local authorities, and we invest funds in the region to invigorate the economy. So our role is all about trying to ensure that we have a healthy economy. So obviously in the last year, that has been quite a monumental year for us because we're in an economic crisis. So you're an economic agency, you get an economic crisis, it's all hands to the tilt. So our role is very much as well about bringing people together, making sure that messages from central government are getting through to where they need to, and then investing those funds to try and manage the crisis. But also we're very interested in reshaping the economy as we sort of emerge from this crisis to come out thinking about longer term goals, making the economy healthier for the planet, making sure that it's fair for people in the region, and making sure that it's resilient to shocks like this going forward. So I head up the comms team and the organisational development team in the organisation, but we're quite small. There's about 40 of us, which, considering the work that we do, is quite phenomenal, really, that 40 of us managed to do that. And we're led by a main strategic board, which is public and private sectors. So you have business leaders working with local authority leaders together on a board to give us strategic direction for our investments and our work. So I learned quite a few things, I think. I think that's fair to say. It's definitely been the most challenging year of my career, and probably for the people that work for me as well in my team. So I think that one of the key things that I think we learned is that it's possible to achieve more than you ever thought, but that definitely comes with a price tag on it. So you can achieve more than you ever thought, but you'll put in more than you ever thought you would ever put in. And you'll probably find it harder than you ever thought you could find it as well. So I think what I learned from a personal perspective is that in order to manage that kind of tsunami of activity, the personal crises that many of my team have been through over the last year, and then also in terms of our role in the region, we have quite a leadership-based role in the region, is that on a personal level, I had to stop apologizing for wanting to be a leader and just actually lead. So let go of any doubt that I might have had that my ideas or my strategic direction may or may not be the right stuff, and just go for it. So that was probably one of the biggest ones on a personal level. But on a professional level, it was watching what we could achieve, but the price of that was really challenging, because people went through a very difficult time, I think it's fair to say, in our organisation, just trying to manage the change.
To share about what we learn when we're in a crisis, and I accept that this has been unusual because of the duration. And actually I was talking to somebody just in an ambulance service yesterday who said, I've coped with many a crisis, but not one that's into month 10.
Yeah.
And I think my closest experience, and probably one of the lessons I learned that really helped me in this year, was when I was a chief exec. It was I stepped into that role just as an organisation had been rated inadequate, and it is extreme pressure, and I mean extreme. You have the CQC, you have the Department of Health, you have everybody breathing down your neck. And we were given 99 urgent actions to put in place. And my response to that was, we can't do that. We cannot do 99 actions. It's impossible. So we're not going to do 99. We're going to start with 20. And I got a lot of pushback at board, as you would expect, but I stuck with my conviction. And we did those 20 well, and then we moved on to the next 20. And the only reason I share that story is because that has been such a formative piece of learning. And during this crisis, I remembered that in April of, right, stop a minute. You can't fix all of this. Some of it's beyond your control. You can only break it down and manage small parts. I didn't panic, and I didn't start all that, what am I going to do? I've got to do this. I've got to pivot. I've got to adapt, you know, and reacting. I just took a deep breath and thought, okay, what are the 3 things that I can do that I'm going to do? And I think that's really important to remember in crisis. And I do think as this lockdown version 3, or whatever we want to call it, has started, I'm hearing that a lot from senior leaders, that actually that is something they've learned from this year is, okay, I can't do all of this, and I'm going to be brave and strong enough to say, I'm not going to even try. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it well. I'm going to look after me, and I'm going to look after my people.
That really resonates, actually, Nat. I think in the beginning, I was so overwhelmed and keen to do a good job. I think we tried to take the kind of the full breadth of what was happening, but then, as I said earlier on, I think I just learned that actually I had to stop trying to please and lead the situation. Quite a different perspective to take, and saying no was the biggest part of that. And certainly it really helped to actually structure the workload that we had, because that was quite a challenge in itself. With such a monumental amount of communication, you have to create process and structure around what you're doing in order to get it out. And saying no was a really big part of that, because I had to say, this is what the team can do, and this is what they can't do. But also, I think one of the things that I found was that I had to say to people, you need to take that off and work that out yourselves, because right now, think support that I might have been able to give you in the past isn't available. So you're going to have to step up. You're going to have to try something new, and step into a space that might have felt a bit uncomfortable for you in the past, and do it yourself. Because there just simply isn't the capacity and the resource to kind of get everything done in the ways that we might have done it before. So that does resonate, and I think I will take that as a learning going forward. Is very much, it's not about everything you do. Sometimes it's about picking what you do and leaving stuff to one side as well, just as important. So
Really brilliant. And having worked with your team for like almost from the start of from the start of the pandemic, we kind of started working with you right at that moment almost. And then your team have been brilliant as well. Sometimes I know they've been very authentic about, asking for help, and we've just worked as a team. So I think that culture of everyone helping each other has been a really strong thing. So you get more from the partners that you work with by everyone looking in together and sort of being honest about what they're struggling with, basically.
It's there's something, isn't there, about combat, like that ability to say no and how much we take on, because as leaders, every time we say yes, we're saying yes on our team's behalf as well, aren't we? And we're just stacking more and more work on them. And I think sometimes saying no is giving them the breathing space then as well, isn't it, to do the right thing. We that was one of our reflections of 2020. We did so much last year, but we kind of said sometimes it was at our own, sort of, it had the impact was on us because we took on too much, and then you kind of burn out, or you lose your energy for it, or you don't do it as well. So really, we've sort of said the same thing for this year, is like our big learn is, let's just do a few things really well rather than trying to do everything. I think it's a great it's a great reflection.
really important things that we did sort of quite early in the pandemic is say, right, we need almost like a strategic framework for everything that's coming through. We need to create some channels or sort of segments that we're going to say, right, that's one of them, that's an A, that's a B, that's a C, and try and organize everything that was coming at us, because we had quite a few different communications remits. So we needed information to come from government and be dispersed out. We needed information to come in and feed into government to feed their intelligence and lobby for more of the right support for people in our region. but then we also needed to provide a sense of leadership and bringing people together as well. So we basically created a bit of a strategic framework for the communications, and everything was categorized either as something to amplify, something that added value, or something that gained insight. So that was the first kind of thing that we did. And then how we did all of that was by working our relationships and working our networks. So what became an absolute priority was building partnership where we hadn't had it before, strengthening partnerships where they were already in place, and stretching those partnerships where perhaps they might have always been sort of partnerships that we used in one way, and now we needed to expand that out and use it in new ways. And so everything that we do, because we're such a smaller organization, is the reach is gained by the work that we spend you know, having good relationships with our partners. And I would say that we're a 250% better at partnership work than we were before the pandemic. And that's been the biggest bonus out of it, because there's always an opportunity to take from a crisis, isn't there? As you were saying, Nat, there's learning to take, there's always opportunity to take. And I think what we learned was that actually we're really, really good at partnership building. We're really good at managing relationships, and they're incredibly powerful. Whether you want to amplify messages out to a broader audience, whether you want to gain insight and really hear from people what's happening on the ground so that you can use that effectively with government, or whether you want to put out a voice of hope, a voice of leadership, and help people see that there's a pathway through this. All of that requires you to work in partnership with others. So I think that's been one of the big successes for us through the pandemic, and one of the ways that we've added the most value to the region and to the business community of the region is by prioritizing partnership. We've strengthened everything we do and got those messages out more effectively.
And you've had more feet on the ground then, as a
exactly,
like the cog in the middle, which has been evident, really.
I think what was very important for us then was to be able to filter. So because you've got that Chinese whispers effect, haven't you, in a way, if you're working in that sense. So having really crystal clear messages, and we always just worked on 3 to 5, 3 to 5. That's the only amount of information that anybody can ever take in is 3 to 5 things. So any more than that isn't for today. But we were sending out huge volumes of information on a daily basis, so we had to be very good at kind of prioritizing that and then crystallizing it as well, so you could say it in a sentence.
I been on the receiving end of a lot of that as well, Aissa. I would say you did it really well as a LEP.
Good.
I think I gave some feedback last year on how well informed as a business I felt, in terms of support and what was on offer and where we could get things from as well. And there's always that danger of overwhelming people, isn't there, with too much information or not getting enough information. But I felt as a LEP you got that really right, from a business point of view. Definitely I felt like I knew what was out there, and I accessed support as a result of that as well, which was really valuable.
No, that's absolutely great to hear, and we have had a lot of really positive feedback, which I must say is quite rare, isn't it? You go about doing your business, but I think because we are in this extreme situation that we're in, people are being a little bit more authentic and taking that moment to say, do you know what, I thought that was good and I'm going to let them know. So we have had some really positive feedback, and it's great to hear yours as well, because obviously that's what we're here to do. So hearing that we've got that right for you is great.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And also the level of trust that you've obviously built up with us, but also with other partners, I'm sure. Just trusting people to get on with the job, because you haven't really got time to manage. Once they can do it, you've just got to let us get on with it, and that's been a great thing for us as well, because you tend to, when somebody's trusting you to get on with it, you do more, don't you?
I think you grow and develop when people trust you so much better. It's always my first point of call as a leader of other people is that I'm going to trust them to do their job, because I've found that if there's if something goes wrong, if a deadline isn't met, if something isn't done as well as you'd want it to do, there's always a really good reason for it. You know, I think for the most part, I'd say 99% of the people I've ever worked with want to do a good job. And I've had good opportunities this year to really work from much more of a coaching style with my team. I think because we're empathy led, because we know we're all having such a hard time. And actually, whereas in the past I might have got a bit grumpy about something, is just to be able to say, okay, I know you want to do well. This wasn't good enough. What's going on for you? Are you okay? How can we address this? How could it have been different? Could I have supported you better? It's brought me on in that way as well, just trusting that there's a good reason it hasn't worked out the way that you might want it to. So it does a lot, doesn't it, to empower people?
Yeah.
I think that's really, I like the crystallize word, and I talk a lot about being concise and having brevity in your message. That's how you have impact. As Michelle said, people are overwhelmed, you know, you're sitting at home at the moment and you might have homeschooling. I've got messages from school coming in, messages from clients, and then you've got messages from the government. People aren't going to sit and read anything that's more than about 3 paragraphs or a couple of sentences. It's got to be to the point, hasn't it? And I'll take it away. And I also really liked your point about that communication being two-way. So it isn't just how do you get communication out, is it? It's how are you taking it in? How does that build partnership and trust? And that's how you really establish a good communication flow, isn't it? It's about a relationship. So those were the 2 things really that I heard from hearing everybody's discussion.
And that's what it feels like to work with you as well. So that's good.
Well, I just put here on my notes, get real. I think one of the absolutely brilliant takeaways from 2020, as a working mum, but also just as a leader, is the capacity that it's given us to be more of our real selves in the workplace. I know I did a strengths profile with Michelle recently, and authenticity came out as my biggest strength. And it was quite interesting because I'd always taken my authenticity to be something that perhaps I ought to dial down a little bit. But I took a lot from that, Michelle, and I think we've been able to show. I'm strained today. You know, Nat, you mentioned the kids coming in and out, and we can just be much more real with each other. And I think that allows us to cut to the chase so much more effectively, because we're not putting on a facade, we're not pretending to be something that we're not. And those authentic conversations that we're having more and more often mean that we can support people so much better. You know, I've had with my team, some of them will like to share the detail of what's going on in their personal life, and that's great. But all of them will say, I haven't been feeling so great. I'm not feeling so great today. Or I wasn't feeling great last week, but I'm feeling much better now. Or can I have some help? You know, and I just think it's sped up. It's made us a hell of a lot more efficient just by virtue of the fact that we can just be more real with one another, and then we can support each other better to get the job done. So I'm just going to keep doing more of that, but adding into that patience, because I think a 10-month crisis, as you said, Nat, the biggest thing that we need to remember is that it's a marathon, not a sprint, isn't it? And I think we'll be at this for quite a while longer, to be honest with you. I don't think our lives are going to return to normal in the spring by any stretch of the imagination. So I've just been really advising my team, okay, at the beginning of the pandemic, I could ask you to put in 9-10 hour days on a daily basis. I could ask you to go above and beyond, but I absolutely can't keep doing that on a daily basis. So what I want you to do is take breaks, go outside, you know, have rest, because what we need to do is actually not do everything, but prioritize really, really well, and do that in a normal working week. because I just can't keep asking this group of people to, you know, push their lives to one side and hand everything over to the business of the day, you know. And I certainly did that with my kids at points along the way, and I regret it, but there's nothing I can do about it. But no, I won't do that in this lockdown, for example. I will take much more time to be present for them, because actually in the long term it's what's important. So
I think this is all the whole thing myself feels like a complete rebalancing for us all and the planet. And although these are really hard lessons for us to all learn, it's actually what is needed, because we'd all got a bit manic and out of control, and it does feel hard and weird and different, doesn't it, sometimes? But I think you're absolutely right, and what you're saying is more balance, really.
yeah, that's right, isn't it? It's in a way we do have to accept that something not normal is normal, and so we have to go about, as you say, adjusting and managing life in this way, but taking from the lessons that we might have learned last year about what's really important to us, which is our health and our loved ones.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, it's so interesting to hear what you say, because I don't think it's going to go back to normal. I think this is, we're just going to evolve out of this. It's not going to go back to how it was ever. And that's what I think people are struggling to get their heads around now. There's like a level of grief about that's never coming back, you know. And actually it's not all bad, everything that's happened. Some of the things that have happened, some of the changes that have happened, I know some of the terrible things have happened as well, are very difficult, and the losses. But the way we are with each other and the way we work together and the way we treat each other had to change, really. So this is the right thing. If this is what comes out of it, then for the best, isn't it, in the long run? I just hope people remember it, and I think the longer it goes on, the more we will just work in this way now going forward.